This is Minds Without Borders. Welcome back, everyone, to our new episode. This is a podcast where a group of old friends get together to talk about anything that goes around, happens around us, and we talk about not just one topic or just few topics, but anything and everything. To sum it up, we are a no topic left behind group or a podcast.
Right.
And
Yes.
for the last few episodes, we talked about what identity means to us, like how we feel about our own identity. And then in our second episode, I think we discussed how living abroad for a long time makes us feel about where we belong, what our home is, or where our home is. And in the last episode, we talked about work-life balance. And as you can see, that we mostly discuss a little bit of heavier topics. So this time we are coming with something lighter, but something fun. So for our today's episode, the topic is music. And in this so hopefully one of the feedbacks that we got from our friends and family is that we are very serious and very formal, which we are not. So that's why we are in this episode, we're trying to come up with something lighter, hence the topic discussion over music. And before we dive into this discussion, I want to put a disclaimer that I am no expert, and I don't think we are any of us are expert in music. But what we are going to discuss is what music means to us, and where we in this time and age where there are hundreds of devices and the places that we can find music from, where we get our music. And we will also talk about uh, our memories, earliest memories of listening to music, and how we got into the kind of music that we listen to. And from there, we all are from Nepal, um, and then we grew up listening to Bollywood as well as English music, or mostly American music. So we also want to discuss about our various interest level between American music versus Nepali music and why that is. And then, last but not the least, we will be talking about the ubiquitous topic of love, relationship, and breakups uh, that are the stories that we tell in the songs we listen to, or the people who make music. Why that is the case, we want to discuss about that as well. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome our panelist here, Subin Shrestha from Southern California. He told me to mention that he's from SoCal.
Hello, guys.
And Irina is from Northern California, NoCal.
Hi, guys. Happy to be back here.
And our new guest today, she's in our podcast for the first time. And thank you for joining us, and welcome Kanti Shrestha from New York.
Hi everyone, happy to be here.
And Biswas, you're from?
Oh yes, I always forget to introduce myself. And I am Biswas, and I am in East Coast, somewhere in DC area. Thank you, Suvin, for reminding me that.
No problem.
So, like I said earlier, that we want to make this a fun episode where we, at least relax and talk about our music. So, I want to start with, since we are talking about music, like I said, I want to start with our earliest memory of listening to any kind of music that we can remember. So, for me, for example, I when I think of let's say Bollywood music or any music, I remember this time. I think it was sometime in Dasai or Tihar time. It was in the night time. I was at my mom's uncle's house, and then we were in the rooftop, and there was some party going on, and they were playing this "Sun Baba Sun." If you know that song or not, that's a very old song
Yeah.
from 80s or 90s. I don't even know what time it was from, but I remember that. And then also, whenever I listen to that song, it takes me back to that time, and even makes me feel like cold and dark, and it reminds me of the time that I heard that song from. And likewise, there's another one, which is the song from, I know the movie also, Divana. and AC Divanagi something. So sorry,
Mm-hmm.
I listen. I grew up listening to lots of Bollywood music, guys. Okay, and that takes me to somebody's wedding. One of my uncle's wedding, they played that song, and then those are like few songs that I remember or reminds me whenever I listen to them, takes me back to these time back. So yeah, I mean, I wanted to start by how about you guys sharing your earliest memories of
Yeah.
music? Like I have Bollywood, maybe you guys have something else.
I can start because it's a very specific memory. My first memory of any music is not Bollywood. It's actually, I think I was maybe 3 years old. And I remember it because it was my siblings were like a lot older than me, were made me watch this video of Michael Jackson's Thriller. And
Mm.
so, at a young age, it's a thrilling, scary video. And so it's like, again, that may be the only memory I have from like being 2 years old is watching that video and then obviously getting scared and running to my mom, probably. That's
It's
in some
stamped
other
into
part
your
of the
brain,
house.
tattooed into your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, but again, now I'm glad that was my first introduction to music.
Yeah, you should be happy about it because I saw
Yeah.
the Thriller video. I think in the last 10 years or so. I mean, just 10 years ago, I had never. I knew other songs about Michael
How did you
Jackson.
not watch that video?
Yeah, I don't know. I never watched that video or maybe even not heard Thriller before that. I had heard about his old songs, other songs that played in MTV at that time, like Billie Jean and what are other
Black or
songs?
white. Black or
Black and
white.
White, yes,
Yeah.
Or white.
but not Thriller. That's good that
Yeah.
you got to listen to the classic.
I know. And so I'm glad my siblings, I'm sure they were attempting to just scare me, but I'm glad that that was the song they chose to make me listen to.
Yeah, since Irna isn't going, I can talk about me a little bit. I don't have that kind of specific memory, but I do remember. Um, yeah, you guys may know this. I love music and I talk about and think about music all the time. Even as a kid, my earliest memories were just singing the ad jingles that came on TV, like everything from Little Soap to I don't remember all of them right now in the on the top of my head, but no matter what ad came on TV, I would be repeating that song. And one of my earliest memories is my dad and my parents were, as a lot of Asian parents are very strict about like being uh, a good student and learning your knowing your books, and we used to mug up all of our books. So my dad, one time I was just watching TV, and as the ad was coming on, I was just singing back the ad jingle, and then he didn't yell at me or anything, but he just looked at me and said, I wish you had memorized all of your math just as well as can memorize every single ad on TV. So I still remember him mentioning that. And so for me, music has always been part of I think who I am. I express myself sometimes to friends, to my wife, to other people through music. I send them songs to express. This is how I'm feeling at the moment. I regularly capture lyrics that I really like. I literally have a document of lyrics, random either paragraphs or an entire song that expresses how I feel. And so for in terms of music, there are two components, right? There's the music aspect and there's the lyrics aspect, and I'm very attuned to both in a different way. Like sometimes I just listen to the song and it's just the music, and it touches me emotionally so much. I've literally cried just listening to songs in a car. I don't bawl out cry, but I definitely get emotional and start tearing up. And then sometimes there are songs where the music isn't as emotionally captivating, but the lyrics definitely is. And so I'll try to find a different version of that song to see if I can like a different version of that song with the same lyrics and things like that. So yeah, I don't have a earliest memory, one single early memory, but all I remember is it's always been with me.
So do you remember what ads? Is it Are
Um,
Are Rara, Mitho Vansansara?
that too, but you guys will find this funny. I don't know if I should say this or not, but I didn't know this. Okay, So one time I was hiking with my uncle. I was about 13, 14 years old. I know that's not super early, but 13, 14 years old. And I was singing this song. Our Nepali listeners will probably recognize this song, and you can tell me if you recognize this song, okay? This is going to sound really bad, but it was something like, "Ma surakshako लागि hazir chu."
Oh my
Oh my god.
That was the song.
So yeah, so when I was a kid, I didn't know what the song was about, okay? So I just loved songs a lot. I have a second song that I can talk
No
about in a little
beeps
bit.
in there when they did that.
No, there was no reason for a beep. So for our audiences who don't know this song, I'm so glad you guys recognized it within the first sentence, because I didn't want to keep going. So that song is about condoms. So in Nepal, there was a public service announcement. It was a public service announcement song about using condoms for safe sex, and it was a whole song. I can keep going, right? Like it's every Nepali
Please
knows this
don't.
song. Yeah.
But it
So
was
I
a
was
catchy
hiking.
song. Yeah, it was a catchy song for sure. They
It was
did a
very
good
catchy.
job with public
Yeah.
health.
Yeah, and I didn't know what the song was about, and I was walking with my uncle at that time, who sadly passed away, and he just said, "Hey, what song are you singing?" And I was like, I, and I got pissed off at him because I was like, "What are you talking about? This is such a great song. Don't tell me what song to sing." So only later I realized. So there we
On
go.
ad
Yeah,
jingles, though, this is about Irina, so I'm gonna add before she jumps in. Speaking of ad jingles, Irina and I used to sit like, not, I guess, one seat behind each other. I think Irina was in front of me
in high
in high
school.
school. And I don't know if you remember, you used to sing the Nescafe ad jingle like the whole day. It's still playing in my head. I can't even remember it, but I can hear Irina singing the jingle in class.
I hadn't remembered that for so many years until
But
you
you
just
know, but
mentioned.
you know that, right?
Yeah, it was like Nescafe. I don't even
Okay.
remember how it
And so
goes.
she would be like saying, no, and I think it was when like I was in front of you, and then you would just be all day long. She would just be singing this Nescafe ad jingle in class.
Yeah, I mean, when Sivin was talking about the songs from the ads, I was thinking about the the laundry detergent song, washing powder Nirma, washing
Yeah.
powder Nirma. That's what I thought you were talking about. I didn't know you were gonna go to that song.
An innocent Subin's brain. What can I say?
Yeah, but for me, I think like when I started, I think because we all grew up in this Bollywood culture where a lot of the movies when we started growing up was mostly these Bollywood movies. So I think my first songs, like one of my first songs was probably like in a party or one of my neighbors playing loud music with the Hindi song. And I don't remember the specific song. I just remember like we had a lot of Bollywood hit movies and their songs that would keep playing. So I think that was like my first. My family wasn't that musical, so they didn't own like these cassettes and all of those things, right? I mean, it was just like, but anybody like outside your house would play, or you'd go to a party, they would play the song, and it was mostly Bollywood music. So that's what I think I got introduced from. But then my first cassette that I remember, like I actually wanted, was my cousin brother. He actually owned. He was like a few years older than me, so he was like all into like different types of English music and all of that. And I was like, oh yeah, what is this? And I was just curious. And so he had like a bunch of Michael Learns to Rock cassettes. And when I
Yeah,
say
that was a
cassettes,
thing
I
back
hope
then.
the generation understands cassette. It wasn't online back then, right? It was even before CDs came along. It was like a cassette. You had to put it in, and then you played from track 1 to 8, and then you had to flip it, and then you had to play the other side of the track. So yeah, so that's what I had. So I had like um, Michael Runs to Rock, and I think it was like George Michael, like Last Christmas I gave you my heart. So like some of those songs. So I remember that because that was my first cassette. So I was like very excited to just play it and turn it around, flip it, and play it. So that's what I remember.
So you mentioned something about how your parents are or your family were not into music. So mine also were not, and so I wanted to actually talk about this as well. So who was your musical influence in that sense? Like, how did you get introduced to, let's say, American music in that So like say English music, because those were not played in radio. Like we already said that most of the music that we remember from the past or from our childhood are ads for some public health ads or ad jingles from for some products. So and I don't think they played English songs in NTV, which was the only channel we had back then, right?
There was one, believe it or not, I will remember this, but there was one TV show on Nepal TV. It was called like Sunday Pop or something.
Oh yeah,
Bhushan, like
Bhujan
the
Dahal.
sole VJ we had back then. And so I remember, yeah, I definitely always watched
What
that
kind of
because I
songs
think
did he play at that? I don't remember watching that.
he
I've heard about that, but
played,
I
no,
haven't
he
watched.
played like Western,
Yeah, Western pop.
pop video, pop,
Uh,
oh, Western
Hmm.
music
Pop.
videos, pop rock.
Okay, pop or rock.
Yeah. And then until
yeah,
like the FM stations became a thing in Nepal, I think that was.
Yes, I think it was when we were little, it was whatever played on TV or what everybody else played. But once when we started getting to be teenagers around like
Mm,
7, 8, 9, like when we were in grade 7, 8, 9, like the FM radio stations were around. And I
Hmm.
think that's when I started to get into the English music, American
mm,
music, because that was like they always played the hits and you had the different FM channels you could go through. So that's when I started getting into it. Like my brother, I think, like my cousin brother, I think he probably introduced me with the cassette, right? And I was a little bit younger at the point, but I was right at the point where I was a teenager. I was starting to like just explore and find music. I never got into Bollywood music as much. I listened to them because that's what everybody played around, but it wasn't like, oh, I loved it so much. It was something you would just play and for fun. So
mm,
like when that kind of the FM um, came in, the FM radio stations came into Nepal, then you had the choice, and then they would all play all these hits, and then you started exploring the different kinds of music, right? So there was the pop music, there was alternative rock music, and it just grew progressively. The different genres grew progressively as we kept growing, like into when we got to our 11th grade and 12th grade. We just had a lot more choices of music by then.
yeah,
mm.
yeah. I have a. I can again talk about music forever, but I have a lot of influences. My first influence is definitely my mom and dad. My dad, uh, because of him, I loved Mohammed Rafi. I still listen to Mohammed Rafi. He's one of the great Indian singers, and Asha Bhosle. Those are my two favorite Indian singers. My mom especially was very much into music. She still is. My One of my first gifts I actually bought for my mom after I came to America was not an iPod, but basically an MP3 player loaded with like 1,000, 2,000 songs that I knew that she liked, and then she, with earphones, she loved listening to music. So my mom was definitely a super big influence on me in terms of music. At my house, every day we wake up, as soon as we wake up, there's always music has already started playing. My dad would start playing with usually bhajans like. What are they called? Hindu gospels. Let's
I
call them.
always have a hard time calling what is bhajan in English actually.
Religious songs?
Gospel?
I think
Is
Isn't
it
it
religious? Oh,
religious?
okay.
yeah, religious songs. I guess they're not technically gospels, but it's like gospel is a type of religious music. So I guess we would just call
Prayer
it religious
songs? I
music.
don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Bhajan. Let's just call it. Let's just
Yeah,
introduce the
bhajan.
world
Yeah.
to the Hindi or Nepali word called bhajan, which is basically singing to God, just like gospels, right? So yeah, so the day would start with bhajans, and then throughout the day in my house, most of the time music would be playing something, some kind of music or the other. And then as I got older, I had a musical influence in my entire family. My uncle from my mom's side introduced me to all the Western rock music. Like that's how I got to Guns N' Roses and Bon Jovi and Metallica and all of that. And my uncle on my dad's side introduced me to pop music like Michael Jackson and Prince and I can't remember others like Beatles. Or Beatles was my uncle's side. And then my friends and my cousins, they introduced me to everything else. So I got a very a wide variety of music introduced to me when I was pretty young, and that's why I think I still have a wide variety of likes in terms of music.
I don't know. I think, like I said, the Western music is probably because of my siblings who are older. And so we would always have, like, again, cassette player is our favorite thing, right? So, I mean, I was listening, I mean, Subin will laugh, but like one of my favorite bands, probably is the Cranberries, and it's like a very
Oh,
random Irish band from like
wow, it's so great.
1990s. And then
Mhm.
I don't think I started off like liking them in when I was 10 years old, but I remember my sister would have it like, the cassettes playing, and I was like, okay, then you get into it, right? So I think there were probably just because whatever's playing in your household, like that's kind of influences you. But obviously I have a very eclectic sense of music preference, but
Yeah, and I
um,
think
go on.
no, no, sorry, go ahead, finish your thought.
Yeah, so I think between that and then with the FM stations coming in, and then again, I just always love music. So like I still remember coming home once we had cable TV, coming home from school and sitting in front of TV
MTV
like after
Select,
school. MTV's
MTV
video
Select, and VH1. There were
video, what
two.
was that Rahul Khanna
V
used to host it?
channel,
Most
Yeah,
V
Wanted?
channel, channel V.
yeah,
No, it
Channel
was like
V.
MTV's Most Wanted and people could like request videos and all of
Oh.
that. And Sumit's very happy
What
about
I
it.
have to see.
Simmons trying to
Yeah.
be MTV DJ. That's how they
Yeah.
did their shows back in the day. So
I don't know why
balloons
that happened.
popping.
But anyway, so going back to the topic, I think the two channels, as soon as we, two things that we used to watch as soon as we got home was MTV Select. That was the one that had the
Yeah, the
the
videos on
the
the
video
side.
lines on the side, and they
Yeah.
used to, yeah. And then there was Channel V with what was that Indian girl's name with the hair that she would always do this?
Shehnaz? No.
Shouldn't.
Shehnaz,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, no, no,
That's
Shehnaz,
no.
Shehnaz
from
yeah.
was an
MTV.
MTV.
She's
Shehnaz
from
was an
She was on
MTV.
MTV.
MTV. Yeah, yeah. She was
Oh,
for MTV,
okay,
but I loved her show. That's what I
yeah,
used to watch.
yeah,
That
MTV's
was
yeah.
Most Wanted was like Rahul Khanna and then Shehnaz.
Oh, okay, I
That's
don't
how
Oh,
I
remember
Rahul
know
any of
them.
Khanna
that.
did that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I only remember Senas. So
These
speaking
two
of Canberry,
OGs.
so did you guys know like Michael Lonstrock is Danish?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
no,
I
I
thought
didn't.
these
I didn't.
bands were all English because they sang in English language, right? But then it turned out some of the like bands that we know of while we were growing up were not English or American. They were
English
Danish.
speaking,
Yeah.
English speaking. Yeah, yeah. Like the Scorpions is German. Did you know that?
Mm,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't
yeah,
know
Mm,
that. See?
yeah,
yeah,
no,
I
I
mean,
didn't.
yeah.
Aqua is also Danish.
Yeah.
I know how
Oh,
much you
that
love Barbie
Barbie
Girl,
girl.
this was, yeah.
Yeah, I only know that song of theirs, and then maybe one or more from them,
Yeah,
which
they're
used to play
also
in
Is
MTV.
Danish.
isn't
Yeah,
ABBA? Oh, ABBA is Swedish, right,
ABBA is
Kanti?
Swedish.
Yeah, ABBA is Swedish.
The biggest tourist attraction in Stockholm right now is like the ABBA Museum. It's so crazy.
Ooh,
I didn't
Mm,
go, but yeah,
really?
Yeah.
That's the
yeah.
Yeah.
biggest
That's the
attraction?
biggest tourist attraction in
I mean,
Stockholm
ABBA
right
is
now.
probably
Aqua.
Sweden's biggest export, like probably.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
They were so huge.
Yeah, but yeah, so like the musical influences, like how your family and people around you influences music. So like in my house and my parents, they didn't own anything. Like nobody played music in my house. I think
same,
my
same.
yeah, my
Mm.
oldest sister, I can't remember if she actually played music. So I'm like the third child in my house, right? So I had like two older sisters. But I think it wasn't until I can't remember if my older sister really had the oldest one had some music playing around, but like the FM radio stations came along when I was growing up
Sixth
to be a
grade.
teenager,
We
sixth
were
grade.
sixth grade. Yeah,
Was
Yeah.
that's
it?
when
Okay,
FM
I don't,
station came.
yeah.
And I think that was me like getting this radio station and changing the channels and getting excited. I used to play music when I would after I would come back home from school. And then I would repeat it, right? And I would like turn the volume on, and then my mom would be like, "What's going on with her? What's going on with her?" It's like if you don't have a musical family, they're like, "Oh, does she have like bad influences in school, or does she have like bad friends?" So I think it's kind of like that, if you don't, and especially like if you're not listening to like Bollywood or Nepali music, like so English music was pretty new for
Mainstream.
them too. So like they're getting introduced to it too. So yeah, that's my memory.
So speaking of discovering music, we touched upon that a little bit.
Mm.
That we kind of like looked upon our older brothers or siblings. So this is something I'm not that into music. I think I always listen to things that I hear from friends. Still now, I don't go and look for new music. So this is something since Subin told me Kanti is also very into music. So this is a good
Hmm.
place to ask. So how do you discover new music these days? Because for
Uh,
me, I always listen. I don't go and listen to new albums or new songs. I don't even listen to. So Spotify has a discover or discovery playlist. where you can actually go and discover new music, I think. But then I just can't do that. I don't have a patience to listen to new songs that I haven't listened to and find out, oh, this is a nice song. And I would be really proud of myself if I could do that one day. So how do you guys discover your new music?
I don't discover as much new music now. Probably I used to. These days, like sometimes I'll just say like, Alexa is connected to my Spotify and my Amazon Music account or Apple Music. And so sometimes like the way I do it is I just ask Alexa play music and then I get to usually it'll pick like, oh, here are your favorites. Or sometimes it's like, okay, based on your listening patterns, like here are the new things we recommend. And so that's sort of how
And
I
where do
find
you
new
listen
music.
to your music? Like, do you sit down and listen to music?
I
That's
mean,
something I never
sometimes I
do,
may
actually.
sit down, but it's usually playing on the
In the
speaker.
background.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other way, and it's probably not like necessarily music you guys would listen to, is like the workout video, like the classes, they have music. And so sometimes so I use like, God, Apple's getting all the free promotion here, but like I use Apple Fitness, right? And so you do a class and then it'll say like if you want to listen to this playlist, like you can connect it to Apple Music. So sometimes I've like discovered new music that way as well. But again, I think Subin is much better. I mean, we do send each other like one of the people Subin sends songs to. It is the two of us. We do exchange.
Oh, really? You
Um,
and Subin do
we
that?
are, yeah. I think most of
Oh.
our texts are probably just about something
Music.
to do with music, right? I don't think we
Yeah.
talk about life, but we talk about like so
I
we'll be
mean, we
like,
talk
hey,
about
I
life when
heard
we
this.
meet. Yeah,
Yeah,
when we
yeah. He'll be
meet, we
like,
talk
hey,
about
I
life. But
saw this. I
yeah,
think you're gonna like this. And same with me. I was like, hey, I saw this. Like I just hadn't heard this song. I heard this song.
yeah.
And then like we probably help each other.
Just going back to what Kanti mentioned earlier in terms of like finding music or Resource's question, I almost irritate myself with how much new music I have to look up. So, like if I'm walking down the road or if I'm in a mall, if a song plays within 2 seconds, even if I'm having a conversation in a restaurant, Kanti and others may have noticed this as well. I'll immediately go, wait, what song is this? So my ears are so tuned to listening to music and finding out whose music is that. If it's good, I'll immediately go into my phone, Shazam or something, and recognize that song. And then if I like it enough, I'll make sure I put it in my Spotify playlist for songs to listen to later. And then if I like the artist enough, then I'll go, oh, okay, I'm going to listen to the entire album. And so listen to the entire album, and then it'll be in my playlist. I'll add it. So I almost go overboard in terms of finding new music because I have um, this need for finding uh, this basically need for finding new music all the time. I listen to music that I love over and over again as well, but I also absolutely need to find new music all the time. So I'm constantly, without even trying, in the hunt for new music, whether that be through friends or again on the radio. I do Shazam and before it used to be SoundCloud or something.
What is a Shazam? Is it an app?
Yeah, Shazam
An
was
app?
this famous app that Apple actually bought. It's
Oh,
built
you
into your
can
iPhone now.
just
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can just
so
do
I
the
think it's
music and it
integrated
tells you
with
what.
TV now,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You can recognize this song, and in fact, I'm so snobby and things like that. Like if a song is playing, I'll actually compete with Shazam and be like, I can figure out what this song is before Shazam can, and I look at that and I'm like, oh wait, I know the artist, I know the voice on this, I know. Yeah, so yeah,
Who
finding new
wins?
music.
You or the Shazam? Who wins?
I mean,
Most of the
depends.
time.
Depends on if it's of music that I'm familiar with. I'm very good at recognizing voices. Like immediately, if a voice comes in, like for example, if it's an Adele song but somebody else sang it, even if it's a female, I'm immediately like, I know this is Adele song, but it's not Adele. So I can recognize the voice, and so I'm able to recognize artists or songs, or at least the artist if I've heard them before. But if it is a completely new artist, then obviously Shazam wins.
Yeah, I can recognize like only for the really popular songs that you've heard over and over again, right? Like the ones that you've heard once or twice, you can't really I can't recognize those. But the way for me to discover music is basically YouTube these days. Like so I'll just go on and be like latest hits or latest songs, and then it'll just be okay, these are the latest songs that are out there to listen to. But the other way that I've discovered music and some unknown artists these days that, or even before I found them on YouTube for being popular, would be like, those Instagram reels. So these Instagram reels now,
Mm.
you put
Mm.
music, people put music to it. And I think it's a way that it's getting marketed, the artists are marketing, the producers are probably marketing through it, is that then you put a video and you've got the audio on it. And that's how I'm listening to these like new catchy bits of songs, and I'm like, oh, what is this song? And then I'll go and then search for it just based on that, because it's just played so much in either of those reels or videos. And that's how like I've discovered like a few new artists just out of the blue, completely out of what I would listen to in your normal radio station hits or YouTube hits, like completely out of them. And I was just like, okay, who is this artist? And then apparently they're like either from TikTok and they got big. I don't know. I don't have TikTok account, but apparently that's where they're coming from, and they've gotten big and now they've gotten these deals. Or maybe they're just starting to get a deal. So these are artists like maybe not in the mainstream yet, but they have their YouTube videos. And that's and I think the whole platform of YouTube has made music so much more accessible, and the breadth to be even broader these days than
Mhm.
what used to be only filtered through the FM's radio stations or through the TV stations, where somebody had to approve your music to get it through, right? So I think that's another aspect.
But then, speaking of YouTube, one of the things that I like about YouTube is the auto tune, where I don't have to go and play or find songs. But then at the
Autoplay, you
same
mean?
time, yeah, autoplay. Sorry, yes,
Yeah, yeah,
autoplay. Did I say
yeah.
auto tune? Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was
yeah,
like, I
okay,
don't use YouTube that
autoplay.
much, so I thought maybe that was a
And
feature.
then, but then at the same time, for me, like Subin said, I list mostly like when I play the autoplay or when I play one song, then YouTube plays the same list of songs again and again, and
Um,
I kind of get tired of it sometimes. And I wish sometimes it would give me, new songs that I would like, which it has done some of the times, but most of the time it plays the same song. But then that's how I find my Nepali music though. Like I play some one song that I know, and then
Hmm.
Hmm.
it has led me to new songs that I have
right.
never listened to, or the artist, like Irina said, the artist I have never heard of. So one of the new artists that I found recently is Sujan Chapagai. I don't know if you guys
I've
know.
heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah, so Monish, one of our friends, he sent me his song Tin Pate, and then from there, like I listened to other songs of his, and
Hmm.
he's actually a really good singer. I mean, I like most of his songs.
I was going to say, and the whole, it's interesting these days because a lot of, what was his name? The very famous Bipul Chetri. Right? I think he got famous not because he went into a TV station or a radio station. He just put it out on SoundCloud and YouTube, and people picked it up, and that's how he became big. So it's like like people can self market themselves and put their music out there these days without having to go through all these channels. I think like before, we only heard probably the talent, like a slit of talent who probably had the talent but also had the right connections to go through.
Hmm.
And now you don't really have to go through those connections because it's so accessible. Music is so accessible. Somebody can download, put their music up on Spotify and SoundCloud and YouTube. And I think that is a big benefit on some of the struggling artists in Nepal, where they may not have made it as big if it wasn't for some of these platforms.
Mm. Actually, it's easier now, right? So back in the days when we only had Radio Nepal, I'm talking about Nepal here, they had to pass voice tests. If you cannot pass the voice test in Radio Nepal, then you cannot play your songs.
Hmm.
Or but that came because I think in the past they had to sing live, so there was no recording. They would come and sing or do whatever live. So maybe that's why. So speaking of Nepali, so how often do you guys listen to Nepali songs? Like, what is the most go to music that you guys that you guys' go to music is? For me, I think I listen to like one third of the time Nepali, one third American, and maybe one third Bollywood, maybe Bollywood more, I don't know. So what do you guys listen to? Because I feel like we don't listen to as much as Nepali music as other cultures. Like when I say cultures, like my Tamil friends, they are very into Tamil music. My Telugu friends, they are very into Telugu music. They actually are proud of Telugu music now that they even won Oscars for their song. Recently, last year, I think one of the
Yeah, they
Telugu
did.
song won Oscars, right? So I wanted to discuss a little bit about why is it that we don't listen to as much as, and when I say we, I think we represent many of Nepalese, if not, I would say people from Kathmandu at least. And why do we not listen to Nepali music as much as other cultures do listen to theirs? I wanted to discuss a little bit about that, as in I wanted to share your views about why you don't listen to Nepali music or you listen to Nepali music less.
I
No,
don't think I don't listen. I, compared to the Hindi music, Bollywood movies, or Bollywood's songs, I think I listen to Nepali music more. So like more. So it may not be as much as English songs because there isn't as many songs. The volume isn't as much, but I probably say like if I listen to English music, then prefer to listen to Nepali music. Only then the last would be Bollywood music for me. It's just something it doesn't associate as much to me. Nepali songs associate much better to me, and I like the tune of like even when I was growing up, when I was a teenager listening to all these English songs, I was listening to Nepatya. I liked it, right? We had one of the first rap singers. What was his name? NSK. I loved him. Like I liked the lyrics of it. I really liked the relevance of it, and so I still listen to it. Like some of the like it depends on the music. Some artists even now I listen to the modern Nepali singers, and some of them, they're kind of in between where they're trying to do a little bit of English music, they're trying to do a little bit of Nepali music, and it doesn't really land right. But then there are people who do purely Nepali, a modern pop way of doing it, or even getting a little folksy piece into it. And I love those. It's just something I would rather listen to compared to the Bollywood songs for me.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. It sounded like I was accusing
Yeah,
you
no, no,
guys,
no, no,
but then
no, no. I think it's
No,
just no,
no.
no,
what I
no. You're
meant was
right,
like, as me also, I don't listen
right,
to as much Nepali songs as I
right, right.
should be, or
I
so
mean,
that's why I was asking.
I don't. I think it was last week, a team member of mine, he's Canadian but now like lives in the US. He casually asked, he's like, "Hey, Kanti, like, what is Nepali music?" Or no, he asked me about Nepali movies, and I said I have no idea. And then he said, "What about music? Like, what kind of music do like is popular in Nepal? Like, what do you think?" And then I paused and I said, great question. I'm not the right person to ask. And then I was like on Spotify being like, okay, here are, like literally looking up. Like I said, oh, I think this People Chatter guy is good. The other guy who used to work at our company, I think Sajjan Rajbhai. And so I was trying to tell him, I don't ask me, but here are the artists I listen to. And then after that conversation, then I started listening to like Nepali music that day. So for me, it doesn't come naturally. I probably would say like I don't even know. I wouldn't say one fourth, one fifth. Um, I mean, of course, like I know all the music that we grew up listening to. I have no good reason. I don't know. I mean, when I listen to people like Bipul Chatri, I like them. I like it. But I have like absolutely no explanation for
So I
why
was
I don't listen
wondering,
to
like,
Nepali
whether
music.
is it because they're not telling our story, or the
Yeah,
quality of the music, or what is it that I'm
yeah,
sure we are Nepali, we know the language, we like to listen to it, but then why is it that we don't listen? And then
yeah.
is it the story that they're not telling?
Yeah, so I have a lot to say about that too because I talk about this or the reason I don't listen to Bollywood and Nepali music as much as American music is basically the variety of stories. So first, I think if I had to categorize, I'd say I listen to about 85% Western. I don't say English because I randomly listen to like actually I listen to some Japanese punk as well, or classical music. So non Nepali Bollywood music, let's say 85%, and then 10 to 12% is probably like Nepali music, and I don't listen to Hindi music, not at all. Again, probably equal. But so I listen to a lot of like Nepatya and Mukti and Revival. I have their vinyl. Naran Gopal, I listen to him a lot. And Bipul Chetri and some of the new artists, and in Hindi also Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. I like music when it's unique. I find that Nepali and Hindi music is even more so than, obviously there's a lot of just churning out what can be a hit in American music as well, but there's more depth and there's more variation if you go out and look for it. I'm sure our Nepali listeners will probably come back to me and say, "Oh, you're just not looking for them." There's a lot of folk Nepali music as well. It's not out in the public as much. But my biggest problem with Nepali and Hindi music is 90 to 95% of the songs, maybe even more, is just about Maya, Prem, love. It's the constant theme is, just love. I mean, I love love songs too, and but it's missing a lot of the elements of struggles of everyday life, and or just anything other than Maya, Prem, uh, uh, Priyasi, Premi. I just get so tired of these words that just mean, so every single song, not every single song, but like 98% of the songs that I at least hear are just about love. And I just get tired of that topic. But if they present that same song to me in a more interesting way with, with uh, 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 what's the and experimentation of music,
Mm-hmm.
bringing in different kinds of instruments, traditional Nepali. Like I love the sound of sarangi, I love the sound of violins, I love the sound of Indian sitars. If they bring these traditional instruments and make it interesting, then it definitely piques my interest.
Yeah, and I think that's why I never connected with those Bollywood songs too. Like we
Yeah.
grew up with it, but everything was about just love and, yeah, I want to go after this guy or after this. Just everything was around it, right? But and Nepali music too, for a while it was when Nepatha came along. They were different because they were folksy pop. So it was, and they kind of had some stories around the lifestyle. So that was interesting. 1974, 80 came along when we were teenagers, and they were rock, right? They were really rock, very different genre of music for the Nepali um, uh, music music sphere. And now in the recent years, I've I think Bipul Chetty became popular because of
Mm-hmm.
implementing the sarangi, a traditional violin um, that that's used in many villages. And so he kind of brought that into the pop scene, and that's what became popular. But I've also started looking at some of the newer Nepali artists that I've seen, where, like Subin said, it's not just about love; it's about like the struggles of so many Nepalis going out to foreign countries, leaving their families, and some of them really working in harsh conditions and not being able to come back to their families. There's stories of those, and then there's stories of like really. It's very interesting. Like, what was his name? He's a rapper. I can't remember what his name is, but he's a really good rapper. Um,
Laure?
yeah, Laure. That's
Laure,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's my favorite Nepali
he's
rapper right now.
favorite
Yeah.
rapper, right? It's
Yeah.
rapper. He's good. He's a good rapper, and then his stories are pretty well. The
Yeah.
other one that I just been recently introduced to is so there's this girl Samriddhi Rai, and she has this
Samriti.
song called Dami Tu, Madami
Yeah,
Tu.
that was it.
Basically means
Yeah.
I'm good. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
this woman singing about,
Oh,
hey,
is it?
I don't need to be in the the whole boxed up way of like looking whatever, doing whatever you should. However I am, I'm like these are this like however whatever I am, however I am good. And I think these are some of the empowering songs, which I think when I was growing up with English music, some of the empowering song artists that were around were there. So I think it's just a different theme and how it connects with you.
Good that you guys mentioned about love songs that we sing about in Nepali. And one thing I've noticed was about the breakup songs. So if and we talked about Naran Gopal, right? Suveen mentioned that he listens to Naran Gopal, and if you listen to most of the Naran Gopal songs, those are, I would say, the ones that I have listened to, at least 80% are breakup songs. And they're very sad songs where he talks about how he misses the person, how he feels inside him, and all that. But one thing I never hear is moving on. However, if you listen to now Western music, so but this is I don't know if I will be comparing apple to apple, but if you listen to this song by Dua Lipa, which is uh, IDW, I don't give a F song, okay.
IDGF,
And if you, yeah,
GF. Yeah.
and then so in that song she talks about moving on, and not just her, like other artists I've listened to, like Queen, not Queen, Pink, and other songs, they're always about, okay, even though they are hurt and they are sad, they always talk about moving on. And that I found was very interesting, and I wonder like why that is it that our culture, or the Eastern culture is, like you go through the process of sadness and then you get out of the other end, or you have to go through that, or is it because yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? I wanted to ask you guys
Yeah, I
actually
don't know.
this
Is
one.
it audience? Is it more audience driven, like, than necessarily performer driven? Because
You
Subin
It's
think
is
that's the
jumping.
audience we want to hear that?
Like,
That's
if the
why.
audience craves, in Nepal, like, would the audience, would Narayan Gopal would have been as popular as he
Hmm.
is had he
Hmm.
been talking about feeling empowered after losing the love of his life?
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. I want to take it slightly bigger than that, because we have to think about, is the music is a what is the sign of the times. It depends on the culture at the moment. Like, we cannot compare today's female empowered, let's say, woke culture, as they say, where female are empowered to talk and speak their voice, with 70s 80s era of Nepal, right? Like, that's a huge difference in culture,
I
like
think it
Shubham
is
said.
yeah, and
actually about come to think of it, even some of like the newer Bollywood songs. I think there's like a breakup song, like that was like a very popular a couple of years ago, and it's like fun, like, yeah, like we broke
yeah,
up, like moving on. So maybe it is a sign of the times too, actually.
yeah, I think so. Like the one that I was just talking to you guys about, Samriddhi Rai, that song, right? I mean, it was refreshing to me, and I was like, huh, it's very different from what you would hear from a Nepali song. It's like somebody empowering and saying, hey, I am good as I am. I don't have to comply to or be the way anybody fits me in these several boxes. So I think it's a sign of the times. Now, Narayan Gopal, I know he was like the emotional song singer, right? I mean, that is why I could never listen to his song
I
because
was just gonna say, I
his
was
songs are
thinking all the
just
Nepali people
too
are gonna hate me.
sad. It's just
Yeah.
too sad for me to listen. Because when I'm listening to music, I want to listen to something a little more happier, upbeat, and like if I were to listen to his music, and I know a lot of people like Naren Bukal, he's very respectable, the way he writes music, touching on emotions, but it's just too sad for me. I don't want to be that sad listening to music.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to add this. So I agree that in Nepali music we don't have that variety, right? So we don't talk about many emotions that we go through, or the stories about different aspects of life, different parts of life. Like we talked about how they talk about depression, or being secluded from the, or not being what do you call it, like almost like outcasted, or so we don't talk about those things. But yes, some of them, some people are there who talk about caste and stuff like that, but especially about emotions, only thing that we care, looks like we care in Nepal, are like love and breakup maybe, right? So another thing, so we talked about how Naran Gopal was sadness, his songs are sad. So I can't move on to another thing before I mention that why do our classical music sound so sad? Like why can't ours? So I don't know. So Indian classical music, I don't know about Nepali classical music that much, because I don't know if we have as much as those classical music. But then Indian classical music, when I listen to them, they usually I get sad listening to them, and that's not the case when I listen to, let's say, Western classical music, where Beethoven, or who's that, Mozart, or Vivaldi, the Italian guy. So when I listen to them, they are almost like listening to rock music. Actually, I sometimes feel that rock music are some kind of derivation of those classical music.
You're right.
And so that's something, I don't know if we can talk about that, like why that is the case. But then that's something I've noticed, that I feel sad when I listen to Nepali or Indian classical music, except for Dasai music, though.
I think that
Dasai
might
music makes me feel happy.
No, I think that might have to do with your own sorry, exposure actually, because if you think about it, a lot of Indian, I mean, if you're talking about actual classical, like literally 500, 300, you're talking about Mozart, which is like 500, 400 years ago, 600 years ago. Um, so, but if you think about it, Indian music, a lot of it was actually created for dancing. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of dancing music in the classical era which you wouldn't consider sad music, right? So maybe it's your exposure that you've heard a lot of sad music or sad classical music. But if you really expand out, and I learned more about Western classical music because I actually took a class in my college about music. But if you were to actually study Indian music, I think you will find a lot more. I don't want to call it happy music, but definitely upbeat music, because 50 to 60% of the music back in the day were created for dances or
Hmm.
performances, or for natak, what are they, plays, so if for a play you need sad music, you need happy music, you need dancing music. So I think that has a little to do with your exposure as well.
Hmm. Actually, I didn't know that. Yeah, so for example, Ravi Shankar, when I listen to him, usually his songs, I don't know, it's just the music of sitar and tabla makes me feel like those are sad, and I don't know why though.
I
Maybe
mean,
it's
the
just
sitar
how I
music can
associate it.
only sound so upbeat, I guess. It
No, I
does.
Really, you think
disagree.
so too?
No, I
Like,
don't know.
outside,
Simon
no,
disagrees. Huh?
of course, because I'm trying to think of that singer. Who's that? The tabla master. Who's that?
Zakir Hussain.
Zakir
Yeah, Zakir
Hussain.
Hussain.
I
So
mean,
if you,
tabla is
Oh
different.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
tabla
Okay,
is
but
right.
like never gonna
yeah,
be. Yeah.
again, see, you guys are using, so tabla can never be sad and sitar can never be happy. That's what you guys are saying. But Zakir Hussain has songs where it's like dun, 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 he's like doing tabla, but then there's sitar in the back doing like what in Western music would call
No, no,
guitar solo.
absolutely. Like a combination of
Yeah, so
instruments can
music is
create.
obviously not based
Yeah.
placed with one instrument, right? It's always multiple instruments. So you can create a slow song with sitar and tabla, and you can create a fast and happy song with sitar and tabla. I'm just saying that, like, I was just giving an example of Zakir Hussain because he was famous and we know his name, and he was famous for tabla. But if you listen to, if you listen to a lot of classical music, or let's not call it classical, but older music from the 80s, 70s, 80s, even Ravi Shankar, um, Zakir Hussain. Yeah, there's a lot of like fast, again, danceable music, and there's sitar, there's tabla, there's all of those, instruments. So I think you may be like, what's the mem- you may be thinking about or remembering these songs as sad, but if you actually go out and explore, there's a lot of like non-sappy, non-sad
Yeah, no,
classical
you're
music
right.
as well.
I mean,
Yeah,
to your
but
point,
sitar can create definitely an upbeat sound as well. That's all I'm saying.
Mm. So we are almost. I think we have like another maybe 5 or 10 minutes. This is something, another topic that or subtopic within music I wanted to discuss was. So we touched upon it a little bit earlier. I think Irina mentioned that music reflects the times that we are in, right? So based on the music we have right now in the popular music, or that is out there, what do you think we are? What kind of times we are in? This is just now a trick question. Could be a trick question. I don't know. Like, whatever you feel right now. So what kind of times are we in? Because uh, I'm sure, like, these days, at least what I listen to are usually about love, about breakups, about always a partying or happy times. So that's what the music I see all the time. I don't know if there are other musics out there talking about, I don't know, Iraq war, Iran war. I mean the wars, but mostly that's the topics that I have seen. And according to that, I feel like we are in a very happy times, even though we don't think we are in. So what do you guys think about that? Like, are we in happy times based on the music that you have seen in public right now?
I don't know about happy times or sad times, but I think the music now does reflect the era we are in terms of people have like very low attention span, right?
Mm.
Like Irina is consuming new music on like TikTok and Instagram. Or most people are like, I don't even watch a full YouTube video. I listen to, I watch the shorts, and if it's like good enough, then that's good song. So I think the contemporary artists at least are then creating music, like I said, right? It's always for the audience. It's never about how I feel. I mean, again, artists will write about how they feel, but for for them to actually make money, it's about the audience. So I think a lot of the artists today are catering to that short attention span. And so a lot of the, at least the West, again, I will not speak for Nepali music because I'm not up to date, but like a lot of the Western music you hear is always going to have that, I don't know, 15 second that is very catchy. Or so I don't think it's reflective necessarily of like the Ukraine and Russia and the China world we live in, but more just like, yeah,
Just the attention span
yeah,
that we have.
yeah.
Mm.
I again, sorry, Viswas, but I will have to disagree a little bit because I think, you know, one, there is so much music, like
Mm.
we can't judge the entire, especially let's consider the entire world and let's minimize that to America or the Western world. We can't, minimize the entire music industry or music as it's going right now, the culture of music with the top 10 hit songs right now, because that's minimizing. But I think of like singers like the last Beyonce album that came out and the album before that, and then the last Jay-Z album that came out that I listened to. There's a lot of talk about and songs about uh, minority voices, like for them it's black voices, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of music coming out from the Latino the communities about their, like Coco, the movie Coco,
Yep, the
the animated
animated movie based out
animated
of
one of,
Colombia.
yeah, that's one of my
Yep,
favorite movies. There's
yep.
a lot of introduction to the mainstream about the Latino culture and Latino music, happy or sad, and but introduction of that kind of culture. So so I think you have to reach outside of the top 10, top 20. But even if you go to top 50, if you start going to the R&B charts or the reggae charts or the hip hop charts, the rap charts, then you'll hear like Kendrick Lamar. He's like today's biggest voice in rap, and he speaks a lot about the American culture, uh, police state, and all of these things. So there's definitely commentary, at least again in the United States. There's still a lot of, even in England, there's a lot of black voices that are coming out and they speak about their experiences. There's a lot of mixed mass of like Indian music mixing up with Western music these days, and that's producing a lot of different kind of voices as well. So to try to summarize the current times with music is going to be very difficult. But if you were to look at all the music, which is obviously impossible, but uh, if you were to collect a bigger sample size, then I think you would hear that
Mm.
today's artists are also talking about today's times. I don't know about specifically about war. I think it
Yeah,
will come out, but today's culture, I think, speaks a lot about their own individual struggle. And that individual, when I say individual, it doesn't necessarily mean a person. It could be individual to uh, uh, uh,
To the group.
to the group ethnicity.
yeah, no. I mean, I think everyone is talking about the current experiences within. I don't think I was saying music today is not talking about today's experiences, but in general, even the songs that you were talking about, it's like there will be, if for the audience, they're just trying to like there will be that hook, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
So how about you, Irina? Like Subin said, there are other experiences people are talking about. What
Mhm.
are the songs that you think are talking about?
I I mean, I agree with Subin. The top 50, top 20 are always going to be the catchy, easy songs that can be
Mm.
played over and over again, that are easy because at the end of it, music is entertainment for a lot of people. It's just something to take their
Exactly.
mind from a hard day's work, something to relax, right? So it could be just relaxing, and that's probably what a lot of people are playing as background music, as music in a club where they're just relaxing. But then there's also songs, if you really sit down in a mental state where you're like actually wanting to listen to the lyrics and actually pay attention, then there's also stories behind from a lot of the artists, like Subin was saying. So yes, the top 15 may not capture it. Those are popular. It's called pop music for a reason, right? Like hip hop, uh, jazz music, those have always had some sort of story behind it if you listen to the lyrics on a lot of them. Like jazz, like I took like a music class back in the day in my undergrad, general education class. And jazz is actually like during slavery, and it kind of went into R&B, and it really changed over time because for the same reason, to be able to carry the stories that how slavery changed, and you know, as they were starting to get more rights and things changed around them, the music changed, the influence changed. So I think essentially it does capture over time. I think it is a reflection of the stories and of the society that we all live in. But at the end of the day, it is still entertainment for a very large population to have those hits.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add two songs that you guys will definitely know that were in the top 20, but not about like, just happy stuff. So Taylor Swift's "You Need to Calm Down," if you guys remember, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
about, there's I don't know how to say the political nature of people just yelling at each other, the Twitter culture. Not like there's a line that I really love in that song which says, if you say it in the streets, that's a knockout, but if you say it in a tweet, that's a cop out, right? So what that's saying is, like, if you say it to my face that, hey, you're not doing a good job, then okay, fair enough, but if you're just out there sitting in a keyboard and being a keyboard warrior, as they say, then that's a cop out. Like, you're not showing
Hmm.
your face, you're not ready
Uh-huh.
for the consequences that comes about for saying those things. So that's one. And the other song, you guys may or may not know, last year's, I think one of the biggest songs of last year's, Beyonce's "Break My Soul," is from her album. That song is about how everybody was being, this was a reflection of the COVID times, how everybody was feeling overworked, and they were quitting their jobs. I could probably go through the lyrics in that one as well, but she literally talks about how, if you're not feeling empowered at work, then I'm just going to quit my job. So, and last year's biggest story, if you guys remember, was that there was the mass exodus from the jobs. What was that? There was a terminology the New York Times came up with, or somebody came up with, about how everybody is quitting their jobs, right? So
Quiet
those
quitting.
are quiet quitting. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that was just not doing your job at work, but there was actually quitting your job as well. So those are just two examples on top of my head that, in today's top 20, talking about today's culture and what we're going through as a society.
One thing it amazes me to think about is how the music from Compton in Los Angeles,
Right
which
here.
was, yeah, and I don't know, people from there. I feel that, or correct me if I'm wrong, that the hip hop came from that place. I mean, that's one of the highly
Actually, you're
influenced area.
wrong because I
I
just
know, I
went
know. In
to.
New York also there
No,
is.
I just actually went to this 50 years of hip hop exhibit
Uh huh.
a
Mhm.
couple of weeks ago, and I learned, I didn't know. It started in the Bronx.
Yeah.
They
In the
actually, like,
Bronx.
this is
Yeah.
like, it was an interactive exhibit, so there was
Mm.
like this club, not really a club, that people used to perform at, whatever. And so it started, yeah, it started in the Bronx, and it didn't actually get to the West Coast. There were a couple of stops still before it reached the West Coast.
So I wonder like how they feel about their music going all over. It's like Coke right now. It's everywhere. I don't think people even write poems anymore. They write everything in hip in a
Rapping,
song, yeah, and
No,
they're
even
rapping
poetry has
about it,
become that. If you
right?
remember,
slam
even
poetry, I think.
yeah, slam poetry is called. Thank you, Kanti. Remember that girl? Kanti might remember her name. The poet who spoke in
She
Joe
was at the
Biden's.
Obama. No, yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, Joe Biden's inauguration.
Yeah.
Yep,
The
yep, that
African
girl.
American girl, slam poetry. Her poem sounds like a hip hop song would, or an R&B song would. So even poetry has been influenced by,
Oh, so
because
what she sang was not
no, she
poetry.
didn't sing. She
I mean,
spoke.
She
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 recited
spoke a
her
poem, right?
poem.
recited a
Recited a
poem.
Yeah.
poem.
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
but if you
It
listen to it,
wasn't hip
it's
hop though.
No, I
no,
mean,
but it's very influenced by, like,
Okay, okay.
the traditional poetry that we think of is like you rhyme the last word, right?
Hmm.
But this is very different. It's a very hip hop, a rap type poetry.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and hip hop has always been a way to express the stories behind, right? That's kind of always been like there's a lot of things they're saying really fast and in a rhythm, but really it's a way to tell the story that you probably are not expressing in a chorus in a normal song. So that's kind of been the history of it too. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, just again, I know this is where out of, but like just to add to like hip hop, but also the current times and people using music, right? Um, Latin pop or Latin whatever, everything is really big in the US, and you have artists like Bad Bunny and a bunch of those again previously um again also just from a cultural perspective, right? I think there's just a huge platform that they're also combining Latin music with rap and hip hop. And in the current political climate, I guess that it means more. But yeah, that's also been an interesting shift. I think there was like first 10 minutes of the Grammys this year was all actually in Spanish. It was not
Mm.
even in English. So I think again, this is very US centric though, but changing times.
Well, with that, we are coming to an end. So, coming to the end, thank you very much, guys, for all your inputs. And one thing I learned from today's podcast is I am not an expert in music. I am,
I don't think any of us
I
are.
know
I
even
don't
less
think
than
any
what
of
I
us.
thought I knew. Like I feel like I knew less than what I thought I knew. And so, thank you very much. This is why I come to this podcast actually, and this is I don't know if you agree. For me, this is more like transitioning from Viber to podcast right now, but I feel it has that similar vibe. So I always learn and I get challenged. So thank you very much. And before we end, we wanted to Irina wanted us to start the podcast with a joke, and and so I'm gonna put her on spot now, and then let's end with Irina's joke about music. How about
Yeah. Um, a little and about an hour too late, I guess.
that?
But no, okay. So here's the joke. What kind of music are balloons afraid of?
So are we supposed to
I mean,
answer?
we know the
We
answer,
know the
so we're
answer
yeah. So I don't think.
I was just giving it a pause. So what kind of music are balloons afraid of? Pop music?
pop music. Thanks.
I I put a little bit of visual for the our YouTube watchers.
All right, with that, thank you all. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening wherever you're listening.
Like
And
and
please
subscribe.
tune into, yeah, please like and subscribe. And please tune into our next episode in 2 weeks. Thanks.
And we'd love to hear your feedback. So
Oh, yeah,
please
we love
comment
to
as well.
hear feedbacks as well.
Thank you guys. This is a fun topic, fun conversation. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Have a great day.